We're going to look at a white sphere as our model or our pattern for how light works, and we're going to make a drawing of it. And in doing so, we're going to be able to see more clearly some of the ways that light and shadow interact. And we're going to give names to some of these, and I'll show you what I mean as the drawing progresses. And I will want each of you to make a drawing like this, like I'm doing, of a sphere. And there will be some other drawings that you can refer to on the assignment page. But what I'm basically doing here is duplicating visually what I showed you at the beginning of the video. White sphere on a white surface with a dark background. And it doesn't really matter how you add these values, these dark values. You just want to get them in there so there's a contrast between the surface of the sphere and the background, which is dark. And so this isn't actually an observational drawing. This is more of a, like I said, a pattern for the way light and shadow interacts on the surface of something, in this case a sphere. So we have light coming in from slightly in front and at an angle, and what that does is it makes a hot spot on the sphere. We call it the highlight. It's the area of the lightest value. And as it comes in, it's of course going to cast a shadow onto the surface of the table. And this is an ellipse, actually. An elliptical shadow, which we call the cast shadow. And so we draw an ellipse and we fill in the value, darken it. And this is not all the same value, not all the same darkness. It's going to be a little bit darker directly underneath the sphere and a little bit lighter on the edges. And so we're not going to worry too much about that. We're going to say that now we've identified two areas, a cast shadow underneath the sphere and a highlight on the sphere. We are going to identify a few more areas, even though there are probably more. This is obviously the darkest part of the sphere, and it's a crescent shape, as you can see. We call this the core shadow as opposed to the cast shadow. The cast shadow is somewhere else other than the object. The core shadow is on the object, and this represents the darkest area of the sphere. And of course it looks very distinct here, but it's going to be blended because it goes from dark to light as it moves towards the highlight. And when you do this in pencil, you're welcome to smear it around however you want. And I would like you to label these areas on your drawing, and just so that you can remember them. So we have the cast shadow, the core shadow, the highlight. The grays that we have in between the core shadow and the highlight we call the midtones, and they vary gradually as they move from the shadow to the highlight. It will take a while to develop a drawing like this to your satisfaction. You have to keep kind of smearing and adding. We have, as you can see, a light area along the left edge. That's not accidental. It's there's a name for this. It's the reflected light. And I'm going to develop that as we go, but you can begin to see it in contrast to the background and the core shadow. And this is produced by light that bounces off of the surface of the white table back onto the shadow. So it's an indirect light, but it's very real, and you can see that you'll observe this in nature, and if you have a name for it, you'll be able to observe it more carefully, see it more readily. So the light's coming in here and bouncing off and hitting the sphere in the shadow area and lightening the shadow. So the core shadow is actually much darker in the middle of the crescent than it is on either edge. We also have a little bit of reflected light in the cast shadow because it hits the sphere, bounces back into the shadow, and lightens it. So it's hard for it to get the light to get underneath the sphere, so it's going to be dark under there and light along the edge. The left edge, I mean, because of the reflected light. And those represent all of the areas that I want you to know for this class, and the idea is that if you have a name for them, you'll be able to see them more readily, which I think is very true. And I'm just going to keep playing around with this and refining it. I'm not going to take it to the limit, but for demonstration purposes, this is all you really need to do. Just draw these so they're clearly delineated, and have the labels on each so that you can remember what they are. I really quite enjoy modeling, developing the values, manipulating them. It's kind of a fun activity. So you're welcome to develop this as fully as you like, but I'm really interested in you doing the other things, the paper and the fabric. You don't have to do both. You can do one or the other, but you're certainly welcome to do both in this assignment. And there it is. Not done, but done enough that you can see the various areas. Here's a piece of crumpled copy machine paper. Don't crumple it up too much. You want to have it be kind of nice looking, and of course fabric is perfect for what we're doing. A towel works, an item of clothing works. You don't want to pay any attention to the color, just the value. And so you see in this towel that's hanging on the wall all kinds of wonderful possibilities. So I hope you'll enjoy this.